Welcome to Open Talk. This is episode 10. I'm your host, Travis Keys. I'm a New Yorker, a photographer, and chairman of APA New York. I'm going to dive right into this week because I have two fabulous guests, Annika Howe and Frank Meo. I want to thank them for coming tonight, and turn on your microphones and video and come on and say hello. And oh my gosh, you guys look fabulous. Frank.
Hey, guys.
There he is. Frank,
Hi.
where are you zooming from?
I'm zooming from Millburn, New Jersey. I don't like to admit that, but I live in New Jersey.
Nice.
And I'm in the East Village in Manhattan, and you'll be hearing the clap out right now in the background.
Oh, that's great.
Wonderful. So we are doing how today. I mean, and I say that as a double entendre there. How are we doing today? What's your level today? Is it a positive? Is it, oh my God, the future's doomed? Wait, there's a new series on Netflix. How are you doing today?
Ladies first, Frank?
Yes, of course.
Always.
I'm at an 8. I think I've been pretty excited about this evening, and I've had a pretty productive day, which I guess you might expect from a producer. Yeah, feeling good.
Good.
Yeah.
And Frank?
And I feel the same. I found out that another company has been using one of my photographers' images after their time limit. So we're going to have to go after those folks.
There we go.
So, you know.
I want to thank all our guests that are coming in to watch Open Talk live on the Zoom room. We are also live streaming on YouTube, and this will be replayed on YouTube, so you can catch it if you miss it, which is fabulous. And if you have questions, please, there is a little Q&A little chat thing you can hit, and we will be taking questions for these two lovely panelists. We want to dive right in. Frank, I'm going to go into starting with you and talking about where you kind of, how does one become, what do you do? What is your job? What would you put on your resume right now?
I would always say that I represent photographers in a variety of ways. You know, I started out in the mailroom at a terrific ad agency called Alley and Gargano back in the day. And somebody from there convinced me that I should be a rep, that I'm good with people and blah, 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 blah. I never imagined being a rep, but, you know, it's changed, you know, like the entire business has changed so much. So I do the repping more on a freelance basis. So I help people out on sort of as a one-off. Photographer needs help in estimating, negotiating, creating a creative brief. They'll call me, and you know, we'll just work together as a one-off project and be their rep in the fullest terms for that project, right from estimating, negotiating all the way through to billing, and it's worked out great for everybody. So from my standpoint, you know, my glass is always 3/4 full.
Now we're going to go back. We're going to use our little time machine, and I have my crack researchers here that have pulled this photo. Tell me about where you grew up.
That's just
if anybody can find him in that, you'll win a prize.
yes. The first one to put in the chat room where I am. Yeah, and Travis, I will get you back. I promise you. I don't know when.
It's gonna happen. I have lots of these. I have lots due to me. That's for sure.
Yeah. So this is in Canarsie, Brooklyn. You know, back in the day, and yeah, I mean, you know, there's just all my old buddies and girlfriends or girls that I wanted to be girlfriends with that didn't want to give me the time of day. But yeah, I mean, there's all good memories. You know, a couple of my friends.
I think we already have a winner. I think it's a ringer, though.
Who's that?
Claudia.
Yeah, but a few of those folks have gone off to heaven, which is really too bad. But never. In fact, top left corner is a kid named Carmine who really came from the boat. Even back then, ended up being a sergeant in the police department.
Wow.
Really amazing. I mean, but he had passed away, and that's how I found. I never knew he was a captain. But anyway, that was fabulous.
How old were you in this photo?
I'm trying to think. So that's Bildersea. That's junior high school, and that must have been. Can you see what grade it is on the bottom there?
No, it doesn't say. It just says, I think 68.
Yeah, yeah. So 68, I was, I must have been, no, I must have been 14, 13, something like that.
Did you know what you wanted to possibly be, or did you have a different fancy right back then?
You know, like so many young kids, I wanted to be a fireman,
Mhm.
a shoe shine guy, uh, and then by the luck of really luck, I I found out that I always wanted to be in advertising, and I had two buddies or three buddies that I grew up with that I could have ended up being that Italian kid, driving a tow truck. But I met these two guys, Grossman and Rosen, who were very very much inspiring, and yeah, so yeah, I got into advertising, at that young age in the mailroom, and I always feel I never worked a day in my life.
Wow.
From working at the ad agency to repping photographers, it's always been so much fun. Even the bad days were good. I'm
Wow.
very lucky, very very lucky.
Love to hear that. So fast forward, photo closer, right?
Yep.
How did that begin?
That actually came, as the business was changing, and the repping model was sort of, from my standpoint, was getting old. I realized there was a real need that photographers, because there's so many more photographers than there are reps, needed help, and they were really to a large degree abandoned. And all these photographers without reps didn't know how to estimate, negotiate, all usage and all these other things. And also at that time, the business had been so great to me, really great to me, in that I put two kids through college, and I've I have a house. Everything I have is from photographers, so I have a tremendous amount of respect and love for what you guys do, and it felt like giving back. And I love that. I love that idea. And that's what really projections is all about, is about giving back to the community and getting exposure for photographers. And so it makes life really fulfilling.
So you just talked about projections. So let's talk about what is projections and how did it kick off?
It really, I mean, she can't hear me, but if I don't say it, she'll know. It was really my wife's idea, as it relates to bringing the community together, and people will enjoy it, and on and on and on. And I said, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but there's all these logistics and everything else that's involved in something like that. So it's easier said than done. And then we started it, and it's really a runaway train.
When did it start? How many years has it been going now?
We're 5 years in. Yeah, put me next to what's his name there. I mean, I can't look good next to him.
William's not a bad looking guy.
William. I mean, my God.
And he's pretty funny too, to boot.
Yeah. It started 5 years ago, and we started very small, and it just has grown. And in that time, wonderful people have helped us. Claudia from Archive Magazine, and the wonderful folks at Photo Shelter and B&H, and Jeff Roberts at Pro Photo Daily. All these folks really helped us, make it grow, and getting, the photographers were always online. They wanted to be involved. So that was
So the premise of projections was to take three photographers and really kind of showcase their work to not only people in the industry, but other people.
Yeah, that's the idea. The photographers come, they present the body of work, and we get to critique it with them, and they share with us their challenges and their victories of getting this shot, getting that shot, doing these different projects, and where is it going. And they get wonderfully peppered with questions, from what type of lens do you use to where are you going to promote it. And I always try to find a way to tell them they really need a rep. They really do.
So fast forward to now, where projections was always done in a wonderful spot and people would gather. You had to adapt it. What was that like? Because I remember you called me right before the last one. You were supposed to have the live one, and you're like, you want to present, are you still doing events? And then you call me back an half an hour later, I think we're not doing any events anymore.
Yeah, we couldn't do it, with all of us getting together, which is really the fun part of it. Everyone loves to chit chat and do all that and have a beer and on and on and on. And we couldn't do it. So without Cliff, I couldn't do it. And Cliff Pickard, who's right in the middle there, he takes care of all the technical pieces of this presentation. And, we just said, we'll Zoom it. And, we had maybe an hour back and forth, and he figured out the technology, and it just runs. It's great. It turned out to be great. And we get big crowds and, terrific events. And like with Annika here, we have a bigger crowd, which, goes, across the ocean. And so that's sort of thrilling. And, now and it's wonderful. Like now more photographers call us. Can I get on? Can I get on? Where when you first start, who are you? What do you want to do? That kind of a thing. So it's grown very, very nicely. It's grown organically. Which
I have to say that the first one I that you did on virtual with your three guests, Claudia and Charles and Alec, was fabulous, and that you really kind of focused in on COVID and stuff like that. And I was honored to be on the second one. And you're always like 15, 20 minutes to each photographer, and then you have Peter, which
right.
was unbelievable. What was that like? I mean, you guys let him kind of just go, and it was longer than I think most of your projections, but it was kind of just, it needed to be, and it was fabulous. How did that work for you? What was your feeling on that?
It's interesting that you say it that way, but I mean, and I love Peter, but I look at you and I look at the person who went 4 years ago, who was just doing a simple project with the same level of respect. And I mean, Peter's great. You're great. I mean, everyone's great. We've had Donna Ferrato and, any number of people. And I look at everyone really equal, because there's been nights where there's been that photographer who is not Peter Turnley,
right,
but is just passionate, like Annie Tuitt. I mean, she did a great presentation on transgender kids, that when people left, they were humbled. So, I don't really, I don't look at like somebody's name being there. That makes it special. I mean, he turned out to be a phenomenal speaker, but no less than you and no less than Erie. And that's why I really love the idea of projections.
Well, it's always been an honor to, you've always been very giving of your time and helping, and I don't even think you remember the first time you and I met.
Oh, don't. I mean, you
put you on the spot. You wouldn't remember. I was a young. I had left 2 careers. I had left. I used to own bars and nightclubs, and then before that, film and TV. I used to work in production, and I walked away from it all. I was very unhappy. I went back to school at ICP, and this is about 6 years ago now. And at the very end of ICP, you get to sit down and have your portfolio sessions. You were one of mine.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yep. I sat down. You gave me a mug. You said you'll never make it in this industry. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, Travis, the next time I do this with you, I really want to screen what you say and what you show.
I have crack researchers. And going into the next projections, I want you to talk about this because I think it's absolutely fabulous. You're changing it up a little bit, and you've asked it for a call for submissions. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we haven't set the date yet for this particular date. The next projections is what we said, a normal projection. But what I felt, and there was a particular photograph that Claudia Paul had taken, and it was a shot of one of the doctors in a hospital in one of these sort of decomposing rooms. He was just sitting there, and she was telling us what he said, and then the moment it just hit me. How about if we get the photographers to actually tape what these folks are saying, what these people are thinking, and what emotions they have, and make that a projections night. So that submission form is for all the photographers to go and meet somebody. It doesn't have to be a doctor. It could be your Federal Express worker. It could be somebody who gets coffee for you, your doorman, whomever it is in your world, who the grocer, somebody who's making the world continue along, taking risk. What are they feeling? And get their words. So this is the chance for photographers who haven't worked in moving in motion to go in, and it could be anybody, anyone could go and do it, to get some motion experience of just sitting and feeling what these folks are feeling. So we thought that was important. So we're getting them, and at a later date, once we put it all together and Cliff coordinates it, we'll have a night where it's just video.
That's
so excited about that.
I think it's going to be fabulous. I'm really, really looking forward to that. And we're going to leave you. You gave me one last picture. Tell me about this one.
That's my girl. That's Amelia. I mean, she was the most aggravating teenager on the planet. I mean, I love her dearly. And just this past May 3rd, she was going to get married, and we had to postpone the wedding.
Wow. Is she still at home, or is she's off on her own? And
no, she's actually sitting on the Brooklyn Bridge, threatening to jump.
Oh no!
Until next April 25th, I think is the date. So, but she's come off the ledge, and so she lives in Tampa with her fiance, who's a great guy, and yeah. So next year we'll have a wedding. So
what's that been like for you, having a child in another state and kind of feeling like I just can't go visit her? Not that you would right now, but knowing that like if you went to Florida, it's a 14-day quarantine. It's like you can't. That's been sort of taken away from you. It's kind of a
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit painful. It's more painful for my wife, because if my daughter was living on the moon, that wouldn't be far enough away. But it is. I mean, it's a tough time. I mean, you worry. It's like everyone's worrying about their mates, their kids, their friends. I mean, that night with you and Erie and Paul Peter. I mean, that was so painful. What everyone's going through. I mean, I haven't. I mean, for me personally, it hasn't been so bad because I have my wife here. I have a place to go outside. You have space. I think it's really painful. That I can't. My daughter's worried, and I can't hug and kiss her. That's really tough.
Yeah,
it really is tough. But I think these things that you do, Travis, is phenomenal. And to be on with Annika is just so incredibly special that you're doing this. So it's great. I mean, it brings the community together. I don't know how many people.
That's the perfect segue to go into Annika. How are you?
Hi.
Welcome to Open Talk. You are the executive producer of House, correct?
I am.
And how are you doing in all of this wonderful craziness?
I think there's a pun in there, and I appreciate it. So
I've thrown it there a couple times now. So
I'm into dad jokes. Okay, so yeah, I'm the executive producer and founder of House. That's the name of my production company. And how am I doing? I'm in the East Village in Manhattan on solo lockdown, and obviously all productions are shut down right now. So I've been staying busy. I've been staying productive. But I'm in good spirits, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Hear that.
Yeah.
So let's go back in time a little bit to when you were just a little How. And
oh my gosh. Okay,
I told you I have a crack research team to pull photos.
Right. You pull those from my Facebook, and it's only fair if I have a picture of my dad too, because my dad raised me. So I'm sleeping on the job.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Michigan with my dad, and then my mom lives in Germany. So I grew up between those two. And yeah, so I have been flying alone since I was about 4 or 5 years old. So travel is second nature for me. Grew up multiculturally, and German was actually my first language.
Wow.
And I didn't know that this industry even existed when I was growing up. I really thought that I would go into diplomacy, and I studied international relations, German film and literature, and ended up, living across Europe and working in the German parliament.
Well,
so that's
how does one get from that to now being a producer?
I'll make it quick. I mean, there is definitely a path, even though it's a bit roundabout, right? So while working in the German parliament, I worked for the MP who was the head of the Media and Culture Commission. And she was so lovely and gracious enough to see a talent in myself with writing, speech writing, event management. And so I was traveling around with her when, different international events were happening. And so I was getting out of the office a bit more rather than doing all of the legislative research. So that was a real gift. And I think also a sign of a true mentor when somebody sees, skills within a younger individual and really polishes.
Would that be the one person that you kind of credit, to being a mentor that to guided you into this, or it was a cavalcade of people?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, from there, I was a TV journalist for Deutsche Welle, the German
Yep.
broadcasting service, and then I moved stateside, and that's where I had the entree into the advertising world and the commercial film world. And I worked for a wonderful film production company that had their base in Chicago as well as Los Angeles. And that's where I learned to have an end client, working with advertising commercials. Those were usually motion projects, primarily with directors. And the owner and founder of that company, he had been a very successful photographer in his day and had made the jump to motion very quickly and successfully. And so a lot of his friends were still successful photographers, and I was helping out on evenings and weekends, making a little bit of cash. And at some point, I had a little come to Jesus moment where I thought, maybe the advertising world is not what I want to be doing. Maybe I want to go back to international relations or do the foreign service exam. And then ultimately I ended up starting my own production company, and that's been more than 13 years now, I think.
Wow. Let's dive into some of the stuff here that
Cool.
you've submitted to me, and let's talk about that.
Okay.
This is the great, perfect first image to dive right into.
You are filming these tons.
We gotta have some fun, right?
That was an actual sumo wrestler that I sourced from Japan for a project with combos. Do you know the
Yes.
snack food?
Yeah,
Yes, they had a whole campaign that I did together with the photographer Todd Baxter, and that was all about bad combinations. So bungee jumping in a sumo wrestler, and a redheaded family, and a charging bowl, and a couple other details. But
that's
yeah,
hysterical.
so Howe House is my production company. We specialize in international, photo production and video as well. And I would say right now, obviously, that international portion has been dialed back.
yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
And
I've had,
it's very hard for a lot of us that like to travel.
Definitely, yeah. And I had, I was able to live in Chicago for many years. That's where I got my start in this business, and it was a wonderful incubator city for me as well. Here are a few images. One was shot by Daniel Jackson, and this was the Chicago Bears football team. And then we've got Robert Maxwell, another Nike campaign there. I do a lot with Nike and Adidas.
Fabulous. Are they still contacting? Are you still in contact with them right now? How is that? How do you find yourself right now in contact with especially the corporations?
I have been getting my contacts there directly have been reaching out for help with content creators.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the approach is changing a little bit, and the large scale campaigns, obviously, we all know that's on pause for a moment until, certain markets are opening up again. But yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
Yeah, we definitely going to dive into more of this.
And this is an image, a really fun one that I
fabulous.
did with the photo duo Juco. They're based out of LA, and Kohler just does such great campaigns. They were, one of those brands that I really had wanted to work with, because they give the photographers such creativity. And I was also, art producing that. So I was able to choose the photo team for this as well. And that's a really fun way for me to flex my.
So as a producer, I mean, that carries a lot of different meaning. And I know certainly in film and TV, sometimes the producer is everything, or the director is everything. How hands-on are you in terms of the creation of the hiring, the art? Like how much do you throw into this? And is it different from project to project, or?
That's a great question. I'm going to break a few of those questions down. So essentially, I bring your creative project to life as a producer. If you're working in, commercial film versus editorial photo, those roles change a little bit. What I like to focus on is a custom approach, depending on if it's an advertising agent client, if it's sports, it's bless you. And so the images that you're seeing here, I'm working in the capacity of, a photo producer where a brand or an advertising agency will reach out to me. They have a creative concept. I don't have my hand in the creative concept whatsoever. I'm the one who's doing the creative problem solving. I'm building the team. I am working together with the photographer or director to establish what they need, their creative solution, and then I translate that into a budget and a schedule. And so that then gives the framework. I'm usually the first person on a project and the last one off. So similar to what Frank had mentioned, you know, I'll work together with the photographer and his agent, or directly with the photographer who may not have an agent, and help them with those things as well. And I do wear a lot of different hats. So I think that's what I find so exciting about photo and having my own company too, is that I don't want to be in the motorhome just doing paperwork on a film shoot.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of the action because I want to be supporting everybody. And I want to be, you know, I think one of the biggest assets is making sure that you're building a team, and that team and crew knowing that you really support them no matter what. Does that answer your question?
It does, and very
Okay.
well. Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to move on to the next photo here.
Sure. Yeah, this was Soren Starbird. This was a campaign. I end up working, because of my nationality and the way I grew up, I work with a lot of European clients as well. And this was a Danish brand. We did their catalogs for a while, and we shot this in Chicago, in San Francisco, and Texas.
It's such a cool image. It looks like it could
Yeah.
be, you know, like some cool new series on Netflix or something. It has this wonderful cinematic. And
yeah, and Soren's amazing. You know, he does a lot of rock and roll photography,
Yeah.
and yeah, really cool dude. All right. And this one is with the photographer Jill Greenburg for cosmetics brand Benefit. You know, here you see a super stylized set. We had a set designer. We had, you know, some really stylized shots here. And what you might also notice is that, unlike a photographer, you know, the range of work that I have on my website, it does not have a distinct point of view or a certain genre, because as a producer, I'm not responsible for that. I'm the one that you bring onto a project when things are logistically complicated, when you need some dialed in communication and project management, when you need somebody to handle the financials. And so for me, I don't really care if the project, honestly, like, I don't care if the project is quote unquote cool. I like it if it makes me flex my problem solving muscles a little bit differently. And that's the other wonderful thing about our industry, is that every single project is different, and it teaches you something new. There's always a challenge, and that's when you really grow. You know, when you're learning.
So prior to the pandemic outbreak and all this social distancing, was there a dream project that you were working towards, or one that you're like, one day I'm going to get to that, and you will still? But was there one that kind of like you were working towards?
I've had some really great dream projects, to be honest. You know, because I do a lot of travel production. I've gone to French Polynesia with Tiny Atlas Quarterly and Emily Nathan. I've, you know, one of my dream projects, I've done a lot of aerial, like helicopter and drone photography and video as well. And we traveled around for 3 weeks throughout Europe. It was just the photographer, the DP director, and myself. And I was organizing flight permissions and helicopters and flyovers, you know, across Amsterdam, London, Paris, Berlin, you know, all over. So those have been dream projects, when you can work so flexibly in a small team. And then I get to use all of my languages as well, because I speak, you know, I'm always trying to pick up a few more.
One of your many superpowers.
Actually hugging, and I can't do that right now.
Oh, that's terrible. Oh. Man, I know. Is there something you can't wait to return to? What are you missing right now?
That was canceled, and that was one that I was really excited about, and hopefully that comes back around once things open up. But I work also often in the hospitality industry, so either with boutique hotel properties or with larger hotel chains. And we had an around the world shoot happening, you know, across South America, Southeast Asia, and Europe. And I'm pretty bummed that one got put on pause.
So as a producer, you wear pretty much every kind of hat there is. Is there one hat that makes you jump up in the morning like, today I'm doing this, and it's the most exciting part? What is it?
Yeah, I like taking out the garbage and getting copies.
I'm not buying that. What is it?
You know, I mean, but I do all of that, you know, like
Of course, I'm
have to
saying
be-
a producer
yeah,
wears every single hat that there is, but
yeah.
they're, you know, as you know, it's like even photographers, they have, you know, they may be saying, well, oh, being on set is my favorite thing, or, you know, the process, the creative process. What for you, is there something that, you know, as a producer, like, man, if they wipe this out of producing, I would never want to do this job again.
Well, I think that I love that initial energy when you get a project and you might see a 2D sketch, or you get boards and you have to flex your creativity and figure out how to translate that into the real world. Like I was mentioning earlier, I'll see a sketch like this benefit, you know, shot. It was, you know, it was not that fleshed out. And so I have to think, speaking with the photographer, I have to think like, how do I translate that into budget numbers and into a timeline and a schedule? And then also, how do I build my team? Because every crew that you build has to be so custom.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to have a different skill set. That's, you know, you don't hire the celebrity hair and makeup artist if you're doing a Carhartt shoot in the backwoods, you know? So you have to also flex your resources. And I think that's one of my, you know, having been doing this for now, 13 years or so, you build up a huge roster of international crew members that, you know, you can balance as well.
Do you always go for a nice mix of new people, or are you sort of like the Martin Scorsese that brings back the same crew for every project and feels at home with them and has a family?
Because I work all over the place. I mean, I do live in New York and I do work here and I love the city. But because I work all over, I don't have one set A-list. I have people that I definitely trust, and having long-standing working relationships with people is invaluable as a producer, because when you can go to a wardrobe stylist and you know that you can give them the entire budget, not micromanage, and you don't have to worry about it. We have enough decisions to make as a producer. We have enough things, different departments to worry about. If I can hire somebody that I trust, why not, right? But I do think that there is a responsibility to bring up the next generation of individuals, and that means giving people a shot, and I have to say that also includes, diversity and inclusion measures as well. And I'm just as likely to hire a female photo assistant as a male photo assistant.
Talking about a shot, let's go to this shot.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, here's something else I get to talk about, is that I love doing mission-driven projects. And when I sometimes have qualms about working in the advertising industry and just selling ads, there are projects that pop up where you get to give back, or you get to at least combine and give back in some way. And this is an image of the old Pajeta. This is where the last two southern white rhinos live in Kenya. And I was brought to Kenya by a major coffee brand that we all have heard of before. And we were able to tack on a few days photographing these endangered animals towards the end, and also giving back. So that was really special, and I'm going to get emotional, but
it's
yeah.
take a moment, because I know when I went over to Africa and I was working on a project, I also went on a safari and took days shooting animals, and I've always had a love for animals, and not a fan of seeing them in circuses or anything like that. But once you see these creatures out in their own habitat and running around, it changes everything for you, and it's a life-changing experience, and you can no longer like look at a zoo or a caged animal the same ever again. And it's just and especially rhinos. I saw about every big game there was in Africa except the rhino, and knowing how rare they are and how endangered, to be able to see this is a very special moment.
It was really magical. And I have to also give credit. So this is the photographer Sam Gabe, and it was also a very small crew. It was he and I and two clients on this shoot, and we traveled around Kenya for a few weeks. Yep. And it was absolutely majestic and beautiful. So
being someone that travels all over the world, what is this like for you right now? Do you feel, I feel like wings clipped, and I was supposed to be all over the place right now. I had so many trips planned for this year, and every one of them has been canceled. What's that like for you now? Are you kind of like, is that easy to grasp, or have you grasped it yet? Because sometimes it's like, I just don't quite like, is it really gone? But it is gone.
Well, there's a German phrase, die Hoffnung stirbt zuletzt. So like the hope dies last, right? So I'm not giving up hope. And I see that you captured me here in my natural habitat on an airplane. And have I grasped it? Sure. I mean, I grasped it the minute I heard that my clients on these travel projects were shutting everything down. So being in a small apartment in the East Village in New York is definitely super confining. I mean, I live in this great city to take advantage of all the cultural offerings. And as a New Yorker, we make the city our living room, right? And we can't do that right now. So that's definitely been constricting and confining. And then just the new way of operating where everything is online. We're on another Zoom call, right?
Yeah.
I think I've probably been on 400 Zoom calls and Instagram lives and whatever else over this time.
What's going through your mind though? Like we see that picture of you on an airplane. If someone said tomorrow we have a production going off in Holland or something like that, what are your thoughts of like the first thing, like, oh, I have to get on an airplane. What's that going to be like? Is it going to be crowded? Is it not going to be crowded? Like, are you eager to jump on that plane now, or what's going through your mind on that?
My first thought is safety, and not necessarily for myself, but the safety of the production and the safety of my crew, because ultimately I'm only as strong as my crew, and I would never want anything, we're the mothers, the producers are like the mothers on set, right? And I would never want anything to happen to anyone on set, whether it's clients, photographer, crew. And so there's a lot of uncertainty, things are still being worked out in terms of insurance and liability and the next steps forward. And I think that's going to be a trickle down. And do I want to be traveling for work again? Yeah, I like to work. I like to be productive. I'm a producer. So I see you queuing up the next photo. So anyway, and my downtime.
Sometimes I forget what you can see, what you can't see. We're going into your current, right now. It's like, how are you dealing with your day to day, being in a city, in a space where you're used to traveling all the time? How's that dealing with your head? How are you grasping all this?
Yeah, the first week I relaxed into it, and I was getting, 7.5 hours of sleep again. And that felt amazing. I felt a little guilty about that. And then, week 2, I definitely had a bit of a panic. And some anxiety, and I worked through that. And then I went into producer mode. I actually started creative camp, but I'll talk about that in a second. Here you're just going to see some silly photos of me craving social contact and doing my Viking deliveries and my drive-bys just to brighten up people's days. And I would deliver things safely and go see friends and just wave at them.
I love it.
And one of my touchstones during this time too has been connecting, right? So I have a lovely group of producer ladies that you're seeing on the screen right now. We meet, every Thursday, and that's been just to have that support. We could all be seen as competitors, but we're actually a community, and that's been something so lovely to have that trust, to talk about where things are at, what we deem necessary for the next steps forward, what we feel comfortable with, and just the collective power of being able to connect. So that's been really
so I know you've been part of many of these webinars. So what have you been doing in terms of giving back to the community and helping people during this time?
Thank you for asking. I've talked on I've given 6 different workshops. I've been a part of 3 different virtual summits. My friends Nate and Steffi pulled off the Freelancer Cyber Summit. I'm super proud of them. It was really fun. And I gave a talk on productivity with purpose, how to anchor your focus in this time because it's really tough. And then really the first week that I went into lockdown, I started what I'm calling creative camp, Corona Creative Camp. And 3 times a week for 8 weeks, we did 25. Yeah, actually we ended up doing like 25 sessions. So 3 times a week we would meet. And we had this lovely group, and we still do. We have a great group of creatives, everything from producers, photo editors, photographers in every industry, wedding, luxury events, commercial advertising, stylists, and that was really cool too. So we would meet 3 times a week and connect, and there was this true deep connection and support that was built in there. And I keep saying was, but it still exists. It's still there. And all of these individuals have been able to push their projects forward, have been able to, just
What you say there is very important. I'm going to pause there very quickly. Is everybody is doing a webinar and everybody's trying to figure out the future and everybody's trying to find their place in this. But when you find that one place that you just described where it feels honest and people are there to help each other and everybody is not trying to sell something and they're really trying to help one another, it really gives you hope. And I was able to do a writer's workshop, statement workshop the other day where we broke into work at different rooms and broke the big group into smaller groups back into the big group. And it was one of the most hopeful and meaningful things I've done in any of these webinars. And I can feel
was
like Creative Camp is sort of like, yes, you were there and you were part of that. So yeah, I mean, that's right. And that's how I see, describing the Creative Camp. It really, it's so important right now.
Yeah. And, there was a place to be vulnerable with one another, to really talk about your challenges and, have those breakdowns if you need it or not, but then also celebrate your wins, as freelancers, as creatives, especially in this time, we don't have bosses congratulating us. We don't have people keeping us on track. So it was part accountability. It's part accountability. It's part, support. And then, everyone was pitching in with their resources and celebrating each other. Photographers were licensing their images for online publications. That was a huge win. When somebody got sick, we were able to, reach out to her when she actually, came down with COVID. And then also whenever anybody has something going on, like I'm sure my Creative Camp is on here watching right now. And I love you guys so much. I think you guys really gave me an anchor as well. And I'm still continuing this too in a slightly different format where we're doing a little bit more of a deep dive and having an accountability group on a monthly, and we have a private Slack channel as well.
That's awesome. So we are friends in the real world. We're part of many same communities, American Photographic Arts and stuff like that. And with that, we are Facebook friends. So I pulled something off of your Facebook and I hope you don't mind. And we're going to put it up. And I hope you read it in your own voice because I think it was a beautiful thing. And I want to share it now.
I'm scared. Oh, good. Okay. It's not the one I thought you
I don't know what you thought it was going to be, but
Go back, Travis.
So everything will be okay. I know this deep in my being. I don't always think it, but if I allow myself to feel into it, that assurance is there. I feel fortunate to have a baseline inner sunshine, but the clouds do appear a bit more frequently in these turbulent times.
I think that's really important. And I'm going to pause for the next slide. And I want both you and Frank to talk about this because you're both part of bigger communities. And that has to do with everything from all the creative types. And what are people reaching out to you and asking for right now? And what kind of conversations are you having? Frank, I'll go with you first on this one.
Yeah, I think people are asking, what should I be doing? Where could I be going? What is it going to be when it's all lifted? So a lot of those questions you don't really have answers to, other than to keep the spirit, and that's like what Annika's doing there. That is just phenomenal. I mean, that's just great, great stuff. People have a place to go. I mean, and there's a lot of people, as you remember on our last projections, people are suffering, in a real way, and having a place to just share time and experiences and frustrations and ideas is really it's a lifesaver. I mean, that's no difference, no less than what the caregivers are doing in hospitals. Yeah. I mean, it's the same type of thing that people are doing the right thing. But the one thing I wanted to say was, people like Annika and I are, I mean, maybe I shouldn't include you, but I'll say for myself, that we're creative in one way, but how lucky are we to be around people for careers that half of them are out of their fucking minds. The other half are just great. The other half are special. And to make a career out of osmosis, to be around those people, it is an incredible gift. You got, like yourself or Larry Leventhal or Clark, like all these wonderful people that, we're lucky enough to be around. We don't have the gift, or I don't have the gift to take a photograph, but God, do I have the gift to love people that are really thinking in a different way? And, you know, to have a career out of that, you can't be luckier. I mean, but that was something you were almost there where I was going. But, you know, Annika, I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way, how lucky, you know, we are as a career.
I
want
do.
to dive a little deeper with you, Annika, and you know, I know you have people that look to you for work and for advice, and a lot of times we just don't have those answers right now because people are the future's uncertain, and we're not sure what's going to be written or how it's going to open or when it's going to open. But when people look to you for guidance, and sometimes you don't have those answers, what are you saying?
I'm just going to be human with them and tell them that I don't know, but I'm here to listen.
Yeah, I
So,
think it's
I mean, I
one of
think
the most
connecting
important
with
things.
people is, connecting is the biggest thing. And just remembering now with the lack of physical contact, you know, people are still craving connection, and picking up the phone and having a human conversation with somebody goes a long way. I mean, I think I counted it up. I've written 64 handwritten letters. I've, you know, made 35 videos for friends' kids because my friends who are at home with kids are going out of their minds. And, you know, people just want true, deep connection. And that's something that I feel really grateful that I have with this creative camp, but also with my producer ladies. I'm also a part of, you know, a few other international producer groups that do more service production. And sometimes people just need to get it out and know that somebody is there. So I think if we're operating with empathy, that's the best we can do, because I don't have all the answers right now.
Yeah, I did pull one or two more shots from your Facebook, and this one resonates on many different levels. And why did you take it, and why did you put it up?
Well, we were making so many strides with green production, right? And going green. New York was giving up the plastic bags of stores, and you know, in production, it can be a very wasteful industry, and treating our planet with respect has been a big thing. You know, it makes production more difficult to go green, but it's really important. And then you see things like this now with COVID and people just throwing their gloves everywhere. It kind of, you know, and then if you read the caption, it's a little cheeky, but so that's been a disappointing reverse slide into those habits. And I think, you know, unfortunately, the way the future on set is going to be there's going to be a lot of prepackaged meals and, you know, disposable things. And that bums me out.
What are you guys seeing for the future of production and sets? Do you think instantly everything changes? Are we rewriting all the rules, or is it just going to be, you know, people are going to like write it out and then it's going to, as humans do, go back to normal and we're going to forget it all?
I think there has to be a recalibration, and there will be a recalibration. And I don't want to future trip too much because I can't see the future. I don't know, you know, what the right approach is right now. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, we're going to look back and say, oh, this is how the virus actually affects us, or this is what we could have done better. But we don't have that, you know.
Yeah, who has that wisdom to know what it's going to be like? But, you know, the one thing I do is when I'm talking to somebody, you know, I tell them, you know, what were your challenges before? Did you know how to write a creative brief? Go and practice that, you know, and send it to me, and we'll critique it, you know, why it should be this way, why, you know, you could do some productive things within the realm of what you normally do, that, you know, that can really be inspiring. I was telling, you know, to the group, I was telling Travis and Annika that, you know, I've been researching some clients that we did jobs for, and looking back from a usage standpoint, are people, you know, there's opportunities there, you know, or you know, just doing things that you need to do that you don't really like to do, but you got to do, you know, whether it's your archive or things like that. And I just did you know, it took me 5 or 6 days. Both my kids played sports, and I always kept their clips, you know, just from the newspapers and stuff like that. And what I did was I took it all out, and I actually, because that was going to be this project I was going to do when I was dribbling at 85 years old, you know, and put together books for them. And I took that as a project to do now, right? So, you know, it's not the most fun thing, but you do it, and then before you know it, it actually turned out to be fun. You know, so that's sort of inspiring people to just get back to doing things that they can do and they can finish, so you feel like you've achieved something. I think that's really
Yeah,
nice.
I think that's important. And I'm going to answer maybe a greater scope question, but my hope for the industry is that there is a recalibration and a reset of expectations. I think we've been sliding into this era of more for less. Yeah. And I've been on, on any shoot we do, photo, and then there's B-roll, there's social media, there's, video combination. And so I feel like we've been sliding into this era where the prep time has been reduced, the budgets are reduced, the usage is increased, the photo fees are dropping, but we still need to create 128 things every day.
How do we protect going back into that? Because you're going to have a lot of companies that are going to be like, well, we don't have the money now, and we're going to cut back, and we still expect more for less. How do we go back into this industry and stand up for our value?
It's through the eyes of safety and knowing that we're going to have different processes and different procedures. And those procedures and processes have not been clearly, locked down yet. However, everyone's priority is to stay healthy. And you're not going to have 16-hour days with 2-hour commutes on either end. That's not possible anymore. So in those summer hours, you're not going to be able to do the sunrise and the sunset in the same day. I think there's going to be, a conversation that needs to happen much earlier at the point of idea conception with these creative campaigns, with the brands and with the advertising agencies that, hey, this creative concept, super clever, but right now this isn't going to land because we can't achieve that in one day, or the storytelling of that image is no longer appropriate. I don't think we're going to be doing, a Coachella style shoot right now. And so with these procedures and these processes, like once those become more clearly defined, you're going to see that we're going to need more prep time on the front end. There will be days of, remote fittings and PPE being sent to crew, and the check-in process on the shoot days is going to change as well. That's going to take time away from active shooting. And also client review, client presence on set, who's actually attending the shoot. That all slows things down. So we've experienced this before. When the decision maker isn't on a shoot, it slows the whole process down. So if clients and agency are not attending the shoot and you're doing remote approvals or remote viewing.
Do you think in this world of Zoom and all this instant streaming that can cut down on that, and actually the client will be watching through Zooms now, and have closed sets, and they'll be watching remotely, and we'll be shooting and delivering. I think
I look forward to the conversations happening earlier, and so the creative is getting dialed in way more in advance, right? And then I do look forward to the different tech solutions that are being developed right now. I've been talking with 3 different digital techs across the country as well, and I'll be publishing something on theproducer.com this week about it too, with remote viewing capabilities, the different workflow processes as well. And I know that there are different programs that are being developed for that right now as well. So
it's wonderful listening to you. God, you're so incredibly optimistic and mature in, like, that's the way it should be. But I have a fear. That the clients will be even tighter.
Yep.
And the young people that work at the ad agencies, they will be tighter. I think the pressure, and to your first point about budgets, I mean, everyone's going to say, Microsoft is going to say, we have no money, right? I mean, every, billion budget companies are going to say that. I guess it's our job to say we cannot do that.
Well, you're getting to a point in technology where they're seeing, and these companies are reaching out for different content now, and obviously trying to get content that they can get produced and shot right now. So you find, these emails going out to photographers and content makers that are like, all right, who are you quarantined with? What do they look like? What can you shoot there? And suddenly, you have this craziness of like what's going on? And when we come back, I think there's going to be some fear of them kind of controlling. And has the content going to be changed? What's the new world, and how are they going to kind of produce this content, and what's it going to look like? I think
And what's
we're in
the
a,
quality going to
yeah,
be?
exactly. They've
Okay,
shown
well, that's
so much,
very
like,
And will they care?
suddenly
Will they
everybody's
care
working
about
from
the
home,
quality?
and yeah, you have TV shows, like all these nightly news, they're doing them from home. They're kind of showing like you don't need to be in an office anymore. It's going
But
to
there
change the
again,
landscape.
it does. Of course, it's going to like nothing remains the same in this world
No,
ever. So
Right.
things are cyclical. Everything always changes, and so you can talk about the good old days that were 2 months ago, but I think things are just going to be different.
So
And
that brings us to
only
this
way.
key question, and both of you, because you both deal with photography and stuff like that, we are now, everything we have known and everything we have done to this point, it's not negated, but suddenly the field is flattened. A lot of photographers are not going to make it through this, or need to get different jobs or have different sources of income. What are you suggesting to your photographer now that we're on a new frontier? This is also the time where the playing field is sort of leveled. And if they're smart enough to get creative and jump ahead and pioneer to the future, they're the ones that are going to leapfrog everyone else. So what would you suggest to people now to prepare themselves to start, like, I'm going to create the new frontier? Because you can do that right now, and people are doing it.
And that's a phenomenal question. I mean, the new frontier, who knows what it looks like, but I think it has to be generated by the blind commitment to create great work, right? Great visuals, whatever that may be, from still life to lifestyle to fashion. It's you just have to, I think you have to keep to the core of, this is who I am, this is what I do. And will technology change? Will the atmosphere change? Will the land? All these things are going to change. And to your point, who can envision what that change is going to be and be the first one in?
And
Right.
I would like to frame that slightly
Yeah.
differently. I would like to say that photographers need to think about how they are of service right now differently.
Yes.
And so that's the great question in
So you
any
have a
form
bunch of people listening in right now. They want some guidance on that one question you just said.
Cool. Well, my website is howhouse.com. My email address is
Yeah.
annika@howhouse.com. You're welcome to reach out to me after this as well.
She's awesome. She's
Um,
awesome.
No, I just really believe that,
Yeah.
what you're offering has to change with the times. And so just think about, social media impacting how you're shooting right now as well. This is just one more shift. It's just a pivot, and it's a plot twist in your career.
Yeah.
So what do you have that's of service, and how can you put your skills as a photographer to use differently to solve a problem? That may not be an advertising shoot, or it might be reaching out to smaller brands right now.
Yeah.
It might be, I just think that you have to frame things a little bit differently, but not what can I get right now? Where's the, it's about how can I be of service, whether it's to existing clients, existing contacts, small businesses, or, getting creative. Come join me in Creative Camp.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to kind of dive into. Creative Camp is, I think, moments like that and workshops like that are really the place you're going to kind of be able to, work this out in a creative environment with multiple people. It's so important, and you need that. Because for me, it's always been, I love being a photographer, and I love the aspect that I can do it as a sole person, but I also like the creative part of working with other people. And it's those moments that a little nugget from this person can change the rest of your life. And it only takes one little piece of information that suddenly, wow, you know what? If I didn't take that workshop, I wouldn't be who I am today, or I wouldn't have, thought of that, or I needed to be reminded of it. They're all important things. I'm going to dive into some questions that we have from the audience, and if you do have questions, now is the time to put them in the Q&A down below. Some people are asking, what would be some good side photography to do from home to complement maybe your fashion, beauty, music photography right now? What would be, because you're not shooting the regular stuff, what would complement that well? Do you have ideas on that or suggestions?
Get out of your comfort zone. I think that's always a good thing in all times. Test this, try that. But Annika brought up a great point about getting back to your existing clients. Just a phone call. Hey, how you doing? Can I help you in any way? that goes back, and that goes back to something that I said about being buttoned up and being a business person as it relates to, if you had kept contact with all these people, all these shoots that you've done, it's a lot easier to go back now and say, how can I help you out? So it's, there's a lot of different things here that you can change as you move forward from a practical standpoint, is to keep, you keep your clients close to you. Always be in contact with them, no matter what the situation is. Now it's a different time, but that's like another lesson learned, that you really, really have to work those things. So in times like this, there's a small project, they need something, they want to come to you.
Yeah.
They need you and you need them. Really important.
I would also add, like, what is it that you are already doing, and what would you be doing if nobody was paying you? And I think one of the examples that I'm getting at right now is, there's a photographer that I work with, Drew Reynolds, who is an avid distance runner. And he just dropped a new series of running during COVID. Beautiful series, some with masks, some without. This is something that he wasn't photographing before, that wasn't his genre and his focus. And it was something that he was able to do during this time. And it's a big passion of his. And it's stunning. It's so beautiful. That was a great reframe. So yeah, it's like looking at, what are you doing already, and how can you solve a problem or offer a service with that?
And using your creativity. I mean, here's a guy who's a runner, how beautiful he's shooting, while he's running. I mean, just why not?
And if you go to the series on Instagram, the captions are amazing too. Okay.
Yeah. And that, to that point, is be using Instagram. If you're not, if you weren't comfortable with it before, now's the time to get comfortable with it. You got to get comfortable, because that's where people are going to be looking. You got to get there.
This one's not a question, but I had to read it out for you. Projections has been a real plus in my life. Very thankful to you, Frank. I thought that was beautiful. I think one of the great things about projections
Who wrote
that? Larry Leventhal.
I never liked Larry.
Larry is a very special, warm.
Yeah,
anyone that
right.
knows Larry loves Larry, because he's just as honest and as real as they come, and
Very nice.
just a very wonderful person to know and have in our lives, and very thankful that he is part of any group that we do. And one of the wonderful things about projections is people really come and just open up and talk honestly about a project, and it's I don't know if it's your selection process. How are you doing this? Because it seems like people are really kind of bearing their soul and not trying to promote themselves, but they're really just kind of openly talking, and you don't really set that up with them. How is this happening?
It's I don't know where that really comes from. I have to be honest with you, but I think, if you can make a generalization about photographers, which I don't like to do, but if you could, you guys are the salt of the earth. When the day is over, most of you are, most of you are just, really honest people, and given the platform to share just lends itself to shedding skin. And, the right questions and the great feedback back and forth, it just, people want that environment. I mean, what Annika's doing is the same thing. It's just giving people a place where it's safe, it's comfortable, and I can share, and I'm not going to be judged, and on and on and on. Without singing Kumbaya, which we could do. We, meaning the photographers, have created a space that says, I'm doing projections or I'm watching projections. It's going to be a nice night. I may not love all the work, but I'm going to have a nice night.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple stuff.
I'd like to add something too, not to answer your question, but right now is also the time for you to try something new, right?
Comfort zone.
So you don't have to have end clients right now. They're not paying you to make work that looks a certain way that they expect from you. Now is the time to play. If you're a portrait photographer, start playing around with still life or food styling or whatever, anything that makes your heart explode.
I'm diving into so many different things. Like this week I was a wildlife photographer.
But we have this big expansive life as freelancers or, in this industry. And there's a lot of good to come out of it, right? So this is nice. You can kind of take the pressure down, the expectation down, and just get back to playing. I mean, think of the great bands as well, you know, musicians, they don't make the same album every single time. They're allowed to evolve,
Mhm.
and you are too as a creative. So,
You've got to evolve, right, Annika?
Yeah.
You've got to evolve.
I mean,
Yeah, this week I tether shooted. I'm not a, I'm one of the, I grew up in New York City. I'm not a, you know, this wildlife and gardener and bird person, but I put up bird feeders. I'm like feeding birds now, and like I'm like, oh, let me shoot all the birds because I have so many different colorful birds. And I'm like, I set up a camera and I tethered it, and I, you know, put flashes out, and I took these amazing shots. I've never shot birds before. Now I'm getting questions like, what kind of bird is that? I'm like, I have no clue what kind of bird that is. I just took a picture. But this next question is really, I think it's geared towards you, Annika. And how important is preparation when it comes to shooting projects?
I mean, if I could show
What?
you, okay. So,
Show us, Annika.
all right, I'll show you in a second. But first, I have a Latin phrase that I like to use, and essentially like victory loves preparation. So I'm a producer, you know, you want to dial everything in so that the creatives show up on set and everything is just seems effortless, right? That's what we do. And problem solving is my creativity. That's, you know, and getting things organized.
Pia says, show us the board.
No, God.
So
All right.
can
So
you overproduce and over prep? Is there a
I'm gonna
danger
show
of that?
you. Here's
Oh, here we go. There it is.
there we go. Okay. So
It's so
That's
clean and organized.
all right. So that is so dorky. And you're gonna just see all the multicolored in my heart. But
What does orange mean?
get paid.
There you go. See, the rep knows. The rep always knows.
Outstanding invoices. So yeah. There's a little BTS shot for you today, guys.
Can you overproduce and be prepared?
Well, yeah, I mean, you think you can overproduce in that you can worry and you can have anxiety. And at some point, you have to have a sentinel mind and you have to think ahead, right? It's like, that's why I love chess, playing chess. It's the same thing. You're planning ahead and thinking of all the different scenarios. Inevitably, something is always going to go wrong. And so that's when you need to be flexible and know that you've done everything that you needed to. All of the, you know, I's are dotted, T's are crossed. But then you have to flex some creativity yourself. And you can overproduce. You need to be flexible as a producer. You can't always say, no, we can't do that. You need to say, yeah, let me figure that out.
I kind of equate it to like traveling with certain people. You have some people that are like, well, we have to be here at 12:15 and 12:30, we have to be there, which doesn't allow you the freedom to explore and experience and be creative sometimes. So how much flexibility do you schedule and produce in that allows that creative flexibility? And
it's a custom approach for every photographer likes to do things differently. And I want to support that photographer or, you know, videographer or director in the way that he needs to be supported, right? So if he wants, you know, a down to the minute schedule, that's what he's going to get. But that's a conversation that you have at the beginning. And if you've worked together before, you kind of know. And yeah, you can overproduce, because if you're not being flexible and supportive of the creative solutions that have to happen, then you're becoming a hindrance. And that's the exact opposite. I'm in the service industry. I provide a service of production. It's like, do you want fries with that?
do you always try and have these conversations with the people you're working with prior and try and just openly discuss things prior to them even happening?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of my favorite things, is really connecting with, you know, photographers and talking about like, what's your vision for this project? Cool. How can I support you with that? Like, what do you need to get that done? And all the great producers I know operate that way. All these lovely ladies that I speak with on a weekly basis too. And what was the other part of your question?
No, that was pretty much it. And another question that we had from someone before we get to my closing questions, what is the biggest challenge you're faced with on a day-to-day basis in your industry for both of you?
Yeah, for me, it's I don't know. You know, it's to keep people's spirits up. That it's okay. I mean, you know, there's always the challenge of money, and no one has money, and no one has budgets, and clients don't call you back, and you know, all of that, right? That's normal, and that I don't believe is going to change. It's it's how do you get everyone to see the light? Because there is going to be a light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah.
And just keep motivating and doing what you do, and always having that glass 3/4 full. I mean, you're part of a cheerleading unit, in a lot of ways, at least now.
I want to see that photo, Frank.
Hey. That won't go on Facebook, huh?
It'll just go on the live stream. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
What's the biggest challenge for the industry, or for me?
No, for you and basically, what challenges are you facing on a day-to-day basis? So what are the biggest challenges for you?
Well, besides not having any projects actually lined up and ready to go, the biggest challenge is figuring out what the insurance and liability situation will be for shoots going forward. And also, I want to address one thing that's been circling around, and then I'm not going to touch on it for too long, but this idea of a waiver on set. I think, some people are upset because whatever. I think a waiver is something that we've seen in hold harmless agreements when we're working at location properties, and we've seen that for years. But the waiver for the crew, the bottom line is everybody needs to be healthy, and that waiver isn't in lieu of protecting our crew.
Right.
Like, that is the number one priority, is keeping everybody safe and healthy. And so I'm not a big fan of this waiver idea at the moment. I know why people are pushing for it. And I know that there are issues with insurance and things like that. And I think a lot of that's going to trickle down from California, from Hollywood. So once those big studios establish the norms and we're able to get different insurance policies, then, things for us in the little photo world are going to, line up accordingly as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last question from the audience. Who would, before I ask a couple questions, any suggestions on how to reach out to new clients so they're trusting that you're a good photographer for them post-COVID, or even right now reaching out? Well, I know we kind of briefly talked upon this, so I'm going to elaborate on this question. What is a good idea and what isn't a good idea on how you should reach out to people right now? Because I think you guys kind of touched upon, and I agree, right now is the time to really retouch base with past clients, reach out to clients that you haven't talked to, and really emphasize how do we help each other right now, and say that in utter earnest, not looking for the payday, just saying we're a community. How do we help each other? What can I do? What are ways that you think are really important that people should be doing right now and not doing for that reason as well?
Well, I have to tell you one thing I did. I wrote, a creative brief to a number of creative directors and art buyers who worked at health ad agencies. And I put together this whole idea that we should be documenting the healthcare workers, but not just the workers, the scientists, people in labs, for J&J. I mean, the amount of research and testing they're doing to find a cure is unbelievable. It is unbelievable. So from a standpoint, for J&J to find the cure, that's one piece. But for J&J to document, for historical reasons, for J&J, that they look back in the year 2020, 50 years, 100 years from now, this company stood still, or any pharmaceutical company, this company stood still to try to save, dare I say, the world, to save thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives. That should be documented. So I did a whole full page on it, and it was very, very emotional, and I got tremendous response out of that. So what can you do? You can reach out to your existing clients, but reach out to them in a way that makes sense, that you're not selling something to them. You're saying, here's an idea, right? And maybe you're already thinking about it, but from my standpoint, I have photographers who can go around the planet, who are all over the world, who can go to your place in India and are in China and in Europe and in Brooklyn, wherever they are. And so, but the thing that comes out of that, whether you get a project or not, and that's really the key, they look at you in a totally different way.
Yeah.
They're looking at you as a creative resource. They're not looking at you as a rep, a photographer. Like, well, I never thought Travis would think that way. Or now I could use Travis to just propose another idea. Hey, Travis, what do you think about that? And that for me is always the sweet spot, that you get clients to look at you beyond the terrific photographer, because
Yeah.
there's a zillion of those. How many are terrific photographers and terrific thinkers? That's where it really gets narrow. So that's what I would say to do.
Yeah.
And I would also say, number one, be human. Like the first contact that you make with somebody should not be salesy. It needs to be, you know, you're making connection, you're checking in. And then on a secondary level, it is, how can you be of service?
Yep.
And what solution are you providing?
Yeah, I agreed so much. And I think it's important for everybody out there, especially the creative types, the producers, the photographers, everybody, that your voice right now is so important and your creative ideas are so important, that we're in an age where all of this is going to go down in the archives, and this is a historic moment, and your voice and what you're feeling and how you are going to see it creatively, you really need to explore that. And if you're, you know, if you're sitting there and sitting like, I don't want to go out of the house, I'm terrified, figure out a way to share that and create that, because right now have to share that, and it would be almost criminal as a photographer not to use your creative voice and document for the future ages of what we're going through. What are you guys feeling on that creative process? How does someone kick in or tap that right now with all the fear of like, well, you know, and I'm just worried about my job next week, you're asking me to be creative?
Well, I mean, therein lies the challenge, right? You know, because it's totally justified to be scared. It really is. I mean, you can't say don't be scared. It's that is a reality. The thing is, your competition may be out there doing stuff, but what else? To Annika's point, what else can you be doing? You know, that says, all right, I couldn't go outside because that's a natural fear, but I did this, right? I reached out to clients. I tried this. I tried that. You know, something that you don't feel like you're standing in sand. You know, I think, you know, what is the Rolling Stone carrot gets no moss, right? I mean, you got to be moving because you're creative, right? What can you do that's creative? And if you can't figure it out yourself, then you know, Annika's group is a perfect place.
Yeah.
Here's my community. What are they doing? And I'm sure you guys you have ideas coming back and forth all the time, and maybe there's going to be a nugget there that inspires you, because you don't want to go out, right? I mean, that you have to have the energy to challenge yourself to be creative. And if that challenge becomes too much, reach out to someone just to talk to.
Yeah, then it's community. You need a community.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You know, I want to mention that if your basic needs are not being met right now, then, you know, creativity is a little bit higher up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And so I also want to recognize and acknowledge that there are minority populations right now that are hurting the most, and those lower on the food chain in the photo world are really hurting. And there have been some wonderful initiatives that I want to mention that, you know, whether it's print sales or, you know, meal deliveries. There's even a woman, a photographer in my neighborhood who's cooking, no questions asked. You text her and she will give you meals. So, you know, and then Adam Richland with Feed the Freelancers is also a great initiative there. So if you're worried about survival, basic needs, then there isn't much room for creativity. But if you have a creative block, that's something that we can work with, right?
Right. Very good point. Very good point.
Perfect.
So a couple of last questions, and we'll deal with this one first. What's sort of been the dark demon that's been banging at your door, trying to creep in the window that you keep pushing out during this?
Whoa,
It's open talk. It's open talk. And for me, you know, I hid from it a long time, that, you know, everything I had worked to up into this point is now different, and it's not going to be the same. And for me to grapple with that was very, very tough. And I'm still grappling with it. I'm like, just like everybody else, you know, here I've worked so long and so hard to find something I love so much to do. I, you know, kissed a lot of frogs, and you know, only, you know, photography turned out to be the one that, you know, I wake up every day loving. And that everything this year was supposed to be like, every year for me has been better and better and better. And this year was going to be off the hook. And suddenly, not only was it not off the hook, it was just canceled. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. Like just put it away, you know, skip to 2021 or something like that. for me, just feeling like, will it ever get to back to what I love, and that passion and fear of it just disappearing or never being the same, and the world not being the same, not being able to just jump in a car and travel across the world and hug people and embrace them and shoot them. And it's like some of them are rational fears and some of them are very irrational fears, and it will go back, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. But that I'm battling that on a constant level.
Yeah, I have to say, and that came up, of course, with you and Erie last couple of weeks ago. I didn't, so I don't have those demons. I have other shit, but I don't have that demon that I'm frightened of, that's going to come through the window. But the one thing that you guys inspired in me is that I have to do more and recognize more that people are really hurting. I didn't have a sense of it as deep as it was that night. And I recognize that I'm not doing enough for my friends, photographers. So from that, I've been calling more and more people. Just, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? So my demon is to watch for my friends who are hurting that I may not know are hurting.
But I mean, that's a very chivalrous and good coming to awake moment. But it's not a demon. It's not. It's like the demon is like, I don't know if I'm going to see my daughter again. I don't know if my grandfather's going to live. I don't know if my future is secure. Am I going to? It's like, they're definitely, because of COVID, and we've never dealt with something like this. We've never, the world has never been shut down. We've never had businesses shut down. We've never gone into an unknown for this long. Like, we don't know what we're going to come out to. That must play something in your fears, in your sleep. Has it at all messed with your head on sleep? It has it all, like, you had discussions with your family? It's like, there must be something that, deep down is really kind of like, and you may not even have acknowledged it yet, but for me, it took a long time, for weeks. Annika, please jump in. Well, Frank, thanks.
My greatest fear is somebody on my team, on my productions, getting sick.
Yeah.
And I could not, there are certain markets that are opening up, and if anything were to ever happen to anybody that I work with, like, I treat my teams like family. Like, we create these small families and we work together so closely, and without my crew, I would be nothing. And so that is a big demon for me, is because we don't know what the proper procedures are supposed to be, because we don't know yet, who has antibodies, what that means. That scares me. If anything, I could not have that on my conscience. If anybody ever truly got sick and passed away, I would be done.
Yeah.
And also my business would be done. I mean, I'm a one-woman operation and I scale up for my projects. If anything were to happen, that would be the end of me. And that's really scary as well. And then the other demon is, my family is not here in New York. I haven't seen my family for ages, and I've got family in Michigan. I've got family in Europe, and my friends are scattered all across the world. And the way that I've grown up, my friends are an extension of, my friend family basically too. And I worry, when will I get to see them? And I miss hugs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I hear that. You want to pass on this one, Frank, or you want to dive into it?
No, it's, I mean, that night you guys opened up that can for me that I really was not aware of. I'm like, I don't have a fear. I really don't have a fear for my daughter. She's with her fiance.
No, that was just an example of.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, but I have to say, this past week, a very, very dear friend of mine, Paul Capelli, creative director. I mean, him and I grew up together. He was in the mailroom. I was the projectionist, and he passed away. And I mean, that cut me so, and it wasn't from the virus, but it's within this. He ended up with lung cancer and died. I mean, I have to say, from this industry, he is clearly. I mean, we knew each other for 40 years. I mean, I really love that guy, and he's gone, and it takes a piece of you, but I don't know really where I'm going with that.
No, I hear you. I mean, I think once you come to the realization of like, especially when it really hits you. Last week, I lost two people that I knew. One that I met that, who started working for me when I owned nightclubs. He was a bouncer, and he was one of the nicest guys. We became friends, and I followed him many years after, and to find out that he passed away, and he was 50. I mean, this is 50. You're not supposed to die at 50. And then a couple of days later, same thing. An art director that passed away, and to really kind of grasp that and feel that, just suddenly it's like, wow, this is real. And it's like, how dare you? And people were writing like, oh, so sorry for your loss. I'm like, don't be sorry for my loss. I'm angry that people have a problem with not wearing face masks. I'm angry that people are saying this is like the flu. I don't remember him all of my life saying, oh, I just lost a friend to the flu. I've lost two people to COVID, and I know several other that are sick and got their ass kicked from it. So don't tell me like, oh, I'm feeling, that I should be locked up at home and this is an infringement on my rights, or, it's like I want people to become empathetic and walk in other people's shoes and understand that. And sometimes, unless they feel and face those demons or have someone get sick or pass away, they don't ever acknowledge it and don't say, well, everything's fine. And it's not real to them. And that's the, that gets me so angry about, this is something that's invisible is very hard to ever grasp. And it's like, when it's a virus and you can't see it, trust me, if people saw people sneezing and the virus floating around, everyone would stay at home. They'd be like, oh my God, look at it, it's everywhere. It's just, or it's not anywhere. It would be much easier to deal with. So now we'll go into another question. What do you miss the most right now?
Hugging people, hugging people. Hugging people.
Yeah, that connection is. And Frank?
Yeah, same thing. I miss my friends.
Yeah.
I really, my mom is in a nursing home, and it's been 2 months since I've seen her.
Oh,
You cannot get in. And they had this idea, and people used it. We didn't. That you could come to a window and see them. But for my mom, that would be too confusing. With our Alzheimer's and dementia. It would just be like, why isn't he coming in? It would be worse. But anyway, I miss my mom. It's
I also miss paying my crew. I know that,
there you go. Right.
People miss their paychecks, and I miss having projects where I can hire people and give them opportunities.
And what was something in the last week?
There's a lot of layers, boy. There's a lot of stinking layers.
What was something in the last week that gave you hope, or made you smile, or made you laugh, or that gave you, like, oh, life's going to be all right. Or life is good.
Rollerblading. I went rollerblading. I broke out some spandex.
Awesome.
And I bought a rebounder, a trampoline. So that's been one of my at-home exercise pieces of equipment. And I just laugh the entire time I'm working out on that thing. So fun. So fun.
And for me, it's a good, 2.5, 3 hour walk where I'm really like dead afterwards. God, I love that. I could walk forever.
Oh yeah. Beach walks for sure. I've been driving once or twice a week to the beach. And then also I need to give a shout out to one of the stylists in the Creative Camp, Pia, because, we're at home. We don't have to wear pants, but I did still put on my heels.
Nice. So. Nice. I'm wearing heels too, but I'm not showing. No, I'm kidding.
Travis, don't show.
And you know what? I want to thank you guys so much for being with us. It means so much.
Great.
I want to just quickly show what next week we have an amazing partnership that they're going to be with us, and I'm so psyched. Kramer and Johnson, their work is fabulous, and Neil is shooting some stuff right now of people wearing face masks that look like it could be, just this campaign. It's just the light. The composition, the colors are amazing, and I can't wait to talk to them tomorrow because they're going to be with us next week. So we're going to have a wonderful time with them. Something that you'd like to leave people off on a positive note with? What would you tell someone who's listening right now?
I miss you all, and I'll see you soon. And if you want a Viking delivery, or if you want to join Creative Camp, you're welcome to join us.
Awesome. Frank,
thanks for having us. I miss everybody.
Oh, no, it was no. Thanks for giving us the chance to talk. And Annika, it was great meeting you. And I look forward to that the evening where we grab a beer together, all of us.
Yeah.
And thanks. I mean, this is a great job, Travis.
I look forward to hugging you all and coming together and being creative. It's overdue, and I want to thank everybody. And this concludes another episode of Open Talk.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Even
much.
your
We'll see you
cat's
again
sleeping
soon.
right now.
He makes an appearance at least once an episode.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.